that's what you can do during the break. Send a link to my mom, and I guess he's better publicizing it to our people. That's the most important thing.
We're live.
Yeah. So,
and nobody's watching right now, so I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Oh.
And my dog thirsty as a motherfucker right now.
Mm-hmm.
And my dog thirsty as a motherfucker right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, we got 5 or 6 people starting to come in. Give us just a second. We're getting some links out, and we'll get this conversation started.
All right.
By the way, we do have Dexter Taylor. Dexter, say hi to the folks. They can hear you.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good to be live and streaming out to the internet with my man Joe Ledoux.
All right, messages are sent.
Thank you, sir.
All right, for those that you are joining us, this is Carbon Mike, known on X as Carbon Mike, his signature microphone you can see on the screen. But it's also Dexter Taylor, our friend that is unfortunately incarcerated in the state of New York on some. I didn't buy a permit for weapons I had in my house that the government should have never been in there to check out. But either way, that's not really what we're here for tonight. We can talk about that, I think, if that comes up. But we wanted to, Dexter's from New York City. So we wanted to discuss some of the things that have gone on in New York City and, quite frankly, get Dexter's take on some of this. But Dexter, I mean, we say that you're incarcerated. You're aware of most of what's going on, and your knowledge is a bit limited as far as searching and Googling things. But you're still up to date on the news. Am I right?
Well, I'm more or less. We get stuff from the AP Newswire app on the tablet, and we get some stuff from Reuters. But so the broad outlines I'm aware of. Certainly, I was aware of the recent election, the recent mayoral election, and Zoran Mamdani's victory in that. So, yeah.
Yep, folks, we got our Dexter. We've got posts coming in saying hello. I think Doc says, "Get him, Dexter." Of course, everybody's sharing and quoting this out there, but Doc's watching. Mr. Mayhem's watching. Ronan has reposted the stream. He's watching as well. Appreciate you guys coming in. By the way, anybody watching, if you have a question for Dexter, shoot it over on the message, and we'll get him to it. He can answer it live here. We're going to try to do this once a week. I may look at configuring this in a different format so that we can maybe take calls or get another space in here involved to get more people involved in the conversation. But tonight we're going to do it for an hour. We've got some sound clips that we're going to go over. We're going to listen to what Dexter's opinion on these and see what he thinks, being a New Yorker from this area where they've just elected a socialist mayor. And then we're going to bounce this from the live stream onto an X space. And of course, you're all invited to that. But now, Dexter, you, I think in communication with some family members, you heard about Mamdani's been elected mayor of New York. And then he was invited to go to the White House, and he did attend the White House. The guy he called a fascist and said that he was the worst thing, Nazi. He visited the White House and gave a press conference, and it was an interesting play there. What's your initial take on that?
Well, it's interesting. My mom, as you pointed out, I don't have access to the public internet here, so my mom called just about every day is to check in. Like to play, conservative videos and stuff like that from YouTube. So I can I can at least hear the audio of the stuff and keep somewhat current. So she and I both thought that this was really a masterstroke by the president. It seemed to fulfill a lot of different purposes. It seemed to kind of cut him down to size in terms of like he didn't have, Mamdani was painting himself as this kind of fire breather and what have you, and then they're kind of cozying up in the Oval Office, wherever they had the press conference afterwards. It seemed to make Mamdani's base kind of uncomfortable because many of the people who voted for Mamdani, hate the president. And now here he is cozying up with the president and making him nice or what have you. And yeah, it fulfilled another few objectives, which I guess we can get into. But yeah, I thought it was really a stroke of genius to invite him to the White House and to kind of give him the grand tour and to have a private conversation with him and then do this. It was very interesting. And from what I couldn't see the video, of course, couldn't see the visuals, but Mamdani's tone seemed somewhat muted and subdued compared to some of his other stuff. And my mother pointed out that his body language, his facial expressions were very like he wasn't quite comfortable in his skin during that press conference.
No, extremely uncomfortable. I tell you what, listen to this. I've got this broke down in a couple of spots here. We've got they're in the Oval Office. President is sitting down. Madame is standing behind him. Okay, almost like a little boy. Yeah. They've got the press in there like Trump will do. The first thing we're going to hear is Trump's kind of opening the press conference. This is the first clip. And let me know if the sound's not coming through clear for you. I can adjust the volume if we need be. But here we go.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built and food and prices. And the price of oil is coming way down. Anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York. And we've got them down, way down from last year. We have, as you know, I've been saying to a lot of people, Walmart said that Thanksgiving this year is exactly 25% less than last year. So that's good for New York, good for everybody. But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true.
And that's it. He switches to Mamdani first, but that was the opening salvo. What did you think about that?
Yeah. Well, one thing he kind of put in there, I don't think was an accident. He talked about so he mentioned affordability, which is of course a real, aside from being a real problem, it is something that Mamdani talked about a lot in his campaign. But he mentioned something that Mamdani has really never mentioned as long as I've heard, from the speeches that I've heard and the transcripts I've read, which is he talked about getting housing built. And you see, that's interesting to me because one of the things I've been saying, because you've been here and you've been in space with me and so on and so forth, is that one of the, if this affordability crisis has a solution, then one element of that solution has to be increasing the supply of housing, which means building stuff, right? And Zohran Mamdani, being who he is, I think building things and kind of productivity and actual kind of organic economic activity never occur to him in his plan of the world. It's always, well, we're going to take from here and move this money over here, and we're going to manage these pricing signals with our kind of perfect knowledge and what have you. But it really, it's not, he doesn't talk and think in terms of, well, we want people to do stuff and profit and actually kind of, stimulate the real economy. So the fact that Trump said we're going to get housing built, I thought that was clever. I thought that, he kind of slipped that in there and I don't recall that Mamdani said anything against that. But
we're going to hear Mandami's kind of response to that. But I agree with you. I think every word there was placed. I don't think anything was an accident.
Yeah.
And he just kind of neuters him off the get. But listen now, this is immediately afterwards that Trump says his piece. Now Mandami kind of introduces himself to the room. This is his response to, and he does try to respond to what Trump said a little bit. He wasn't as prepared as Trump. He's winging it. But here we go.
Yeah.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
That's how he responded there. Now the press is going to go after him. We'll get some of the questions there. They're going to go after him about him calling him Nazi and things like that. But I think Mandami was on his heels at this point in the very beginning of the press conference. He pretty much had to capitulate that. Yeah, it was good to meet the president. Yes, I appreciate being here, and yes, we both love New York, and yes, we're going to be working together. Is pretty much how he started this out.
Yeah, I mean that's. Now you say in terms of like placement for this press conference, you're saying the president was seated and Mandami was standing kind of next to his behind his desk.
You broke up a little bit, but I think the scene on this would be Trump sitting at the Resolute desk as the president would, and Mandami standing with arms crossed in his front, about a step back and a step over to his right side.
that was a brilliant piece of stage management. Because all this time I thought that they were sitting kind of like almost kneecap to kneecap,
like world leaders do when they come and sit in front of the fireplace in the chairs. Yeah, no, he get that. He's like stand. He told him to stand on the X and talk after I do.
Yeah, that was a really brilliant piece of stage management. Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, he said, look, in that clip, he said what he had to say, right? He had to follow the lead, more or less. What's he gonna do, poor fella?
It gets worse. I got one here where Mandami gets very uncomfortable with some of the reporters' questions. They kind of call him out on shit that he said.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil it, but I think Trump was a master in the way he played this. Absolutely. Where are we at on okay, yeah. Let's go to another clip. This is one of the first few questions asked.
Steve Wilson from the New York Post. I've got a question for you and then also one for the mayor-elect. For you, you've referred to Mr. Mamdani as a communist. Could you describe why you feel that way? And also, will you do anything to stop him from arresting Prime Minister Netanyahu if he visits New York?
Well, we didn't discuss your second part of the question. And on your first part, I mean, he's got views that are a little out there, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I changed a lot. From when I first came to office. It's now quite a while ago. It's quite a while. My first term was great. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We're doing even better now. We're doing much better now than we did even the first term. And I can tell you some of my views have changed. And we had discussions on some things. I'm not going to discuss what they were, but that I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually. And some very liberal people he won't surprise them because they already like him.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was, I mean, of course, you knew you were going to get the questions about, well, do you still think someone's a communist, still think he's a Nazi, this and that and that and stuff. not as far wrong as people might think to call Mamdani a socialist. I mean, there is a technical difference between a socialist and a communist, but as a practical matter, when so technically socialism is when the people control the means of production, the means of economic production, and communism is when the state controls the means of economic production. As a practical matter, of course, right? You kind of always, once you start leaning towards socialism, you're always got at least a foot in communism, because the people, when actual socialists get to power, they never talk about actual citizens controlling the means of production. They talk about the state taking over certain things, and right. I mean, Mamdani himself has never in his campaign, he's out and proud socialist. Okay, that's fine. Let's take him at his word. He's never talked about allowing people to own more of the things that can make them economically productive, if you see what I mean, right? He's never talked about, all the stuff he wants to give away. He's never talked about helping subsidize recent trade school graduates to get their own tools and to own their own tools, right? He's never talked about helping people who, local New York-based artisans, right, set up business and be economically productive in their own homes, right? So he's not really interested in the people owning the means of production. Otherwise, he would have talked about the people owning the means of production. What he's interested in is state control, which is definitely firmly in the communist camp. So I think it's funny that Trump said that, and also the whole thing about if people change. I think that was a very sly nod to the fact that the realities of governing make people change. The reality is you have to keep the lights on and keep the infrastructure going. Tend to tamp down some of your more high-flown ideas and rhetoric. So I think that's funny.
That reality beats philosophy. Is that what you say?
Yeah, exactly. Reality certainly gets a vote in any case.
It's going to take it whether you give it or not. All right, let's listen to. I want you to listen to Mamdani's kind of response. He's the back end on this same question. He's going to address this socialist thing.
It sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago, you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve your relationship?
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together. Yes, please.
So they kind of put Mamdani on the spot there, to kind of call it out in his body language. A little smile on his head. He just shakes as he went along. But he had an opportunity to buck back and show how tough he is to Donald Trump, and he buckled. He didn't.
Well, I mean, look, I don't want to. I mean, as much as I dislike his ideas and kind of dislike his personality, I don't want to. I can't really fault him in this instance for having good manners, right? Like that's you've just been the guest of the president in the White House.
Well, now hang on, I'm not a heathen. I'm just saying this though.
But let me make a point though. It's so yeah. One would expect him to kind of tone it down at that point and focus on the areas of agreement. I think what I do fault him for, right, is making the president so big a focus of his campaign in the first place, right? I mean, he was, the reason he's getting these questions is because from time to time in his campaign, from the clips I've heard and from the transcripts I've read, he sounded like he was running against Donald Trump. He was running to be the mayor of New York City. And, the dysfunction that plagues many parts of New York City, did not come from the White House, and it certainly didn't come from Donald Trump, right? And his ideas, his harebrained ideas, I have to say, most of them, his harebrained ideas about how to actually improve the lot of New Yorkers, right? Those harebrained ideas have to stand or fall on their merits, So I like the fact that he had to, he was shown, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you said this and this and this, and he had to kind of tone it down. Well, of course, he had to tone it down. That's fine, and it's good that he did. It's so much the better for him that he did. But I think it's funny because it's like, well, here we are at the end of the day. You asked for this job. You're on the hook, and if you're the mayor of New York, the buck stops with you. So yeah, that's what I thought was funny about that. Yeah, and I just want to point out too that the thing about him is that I don't. It really doesn't seem. See, I've met socialists who actually, and I've read, by the way, especially in here, I read a lot of history. Russia is a country I'm fascinated with, so I've read a lot of Russian history. From medieval times right up to the first and second Russian revolutions. There have been socialists who were actually serious thinkers, who had actually sat down and thought about things, right? And you might disagree with their prescription, right? But at the end of the day, you're like, well, actually, you have thought about the situation. Zoran Mamdani hasn't really thought about economics. I mean, that's the thing. He really hasn't thought about economics. He really hasn't thought about economic productivity. He really hasn't thought about the complexity of the existence of a city like New York. He got some ideas that he got from a person, from multiple persons, or a book, or some combination of those things, and that's what he chose to go with. Well, fair enough. But I think some of his discomfort may be down to the fact that the river is about to meet the road soon, and so much the better. And if he does modify some of his harebrained ideas, so much the better as well.
My point in bringing up his comments and the way he followed is that the left is kind of attacking him. There were the few that came at him pretty hard that they want somebody to spit in Trump's face and have sound bites constantly. That's what the Democrats are dying for someone to do. And he didn't go there and do that. Yeah. He didn't come out.
Yeah, you're right. Because and by the way, that's because they don't have any ideas either. You know what I'm saying? So
no, they're just mad.
What they want is, yeah, exactly. What they want someone to be is they want someone to come, to get in front of a camera, get in front of a hot mic, and emote about the president. Now, my thing has been, I don't carry water for politicians of any stripe. But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's like, well. Do you want to solve the problems of the city, or do you want to emote about a person who lives in Washington, D.C., in the people's house? Like, what? Make up your mind, because you have to decide. You know what I'm saying? And so that's another reason, by the way, why this meeting and the press conference together were kind of a masterstroke on the part of the president, because Mamdani had a choice to make here. He could either act the complete clown, right? Completely be-clown himself on the national stage, right? By going after the president and making this thing. Or he could be a gentleman on camera and in front of hot mics and alienate that part of his base. And, again, to his credit, he chose to be a gentleman. But some of his base is really pissed off because, as you said, they were like, oh, you thought, because that's their infantile notion of what politics is. And that's the infantile notion of what, quote unquote, fighting for the good of New Yorkers is. As long as someone gets to spew negative emotion at a controversial president, then good enough.
Yeah, you don't have to solve the problem.
Yeah,
you just need to be outraged enough about it, right?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And what I'm tired of telling lefties is if your outrage were a solution, we wouldn't have the problem by this time. If anger were enough, we would have solved the problem already. We actually have to think and plan and maybe put in some work and maybe take the time to understand some things. But
without a doubt. So
yeah.
let's listen to Mamdani take more of the reporter's question. The reporters are going to start squeezing him a little bit here.
Oh, sure. Oh, I would do that, absolutely. And if the mayor would like to be here for that meeting, because I know he feels very strongly. I think you feel very, very strongly about peace in the Middle East. I think
we desperately want it, and that's something that I shared with the president, that when I spoke to New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on Hillside Avenue and Fordham Road, I asked them why. I heard again and again two major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis. And I appreciated the chance to discuss both of those things.
He said a lot of my voters actually voted for him, and I'm okay with that. I'll do that. I'll sign it. Give it to me. I'll sign it in a minute.
I'm going to go ahead and go to the next clip too. They kind of go together.
Yep.
Two questions, if I may. One for you, Mr. President, from the BBC in a second. But first of all, to the mayor-elect. You're both from different parts of the political spectrum. You're both populists, though. And I just wondered to what extent the president's campaign style, his techniques, his social media use inspired any part of your campaign.
Well, I actually told the president that, so much of the focus of our campaign has been on the cost of living crisis. And when we asked those New Yorkers who had voted for the president, when we saw an increase in his numbers in New York City, that came back to the same issue: cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And they spoke about the cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost of Con Ed, the cost of childcare. And too often politicians are looking to lecture to New Yorkers what they should care about as opposed to listen. And when we spoke to those voters who voted for President Trump, we heard them speak about cost of living. We focus on that same cost of living, and that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
And I think we have to work a little bit. We talked about Con Edison. We have to work a little bit on getting the prices because, we've gotten fuel prices way down, but it hasn't shown up in Con Edison. And we're going to have to talk to them. If we're sending them fuel at a much lower price than it was a year ago, which is true, we have to get Con Edison to start lowering their rates.
Absolutely.
And if I may, last week you told me.
Okay, now this is a pretty interesting segment right here, right? Because that's definitely a flex on the president's part, right? Because well, first of all, I just want to step back and talk about the philosophical, something I noticed, philosophically about Mamdani, as opposed to people who are at the very least realists about politics and about policy. To people like Mamdani, and again, I don't think I'm accusing him unfairly.
You have 1 minute left.
I take what he says at face value. When he talks about cost of living, his understanding of the cost, right, begins and ends right there. In other words, if X is too expensive, then the answer is to go in and kind of mess with them. It's like, centrally manage the price of X and kind of mandate that X be given away or sold at a lower price. Okay? So he's like, we have to get the cost down. When Trump followed up on what Mamdani said, he immediately he talked about Con Edison, right? Mamdani said the price of Con Ed. Trump said the cost of fuel. That was interesting. I'm going to drop and come back, and we'll continue on this thread.
All right, folks. Yeah, Dexter's going to have to renew the minutes on the phone. I'm going to go to the Tennessee election results
caller
until
has
he calls
hung up.
back.
We're kind of stuck on 61.6%. We're stuck on around 61% of the total vote in. Thanks, Commander John, for your support.
Unknown caller.
We are waiting for more results to come in, bringing you live breaking news coverage. Of this special
Community
election for a
supervision.
U.S. House
This call is subject
seat
to
in
recording
the
and
7th District of Tennessee.
provided to law enforcement agencies. To accept this free call, press 1. Preventing suicide is important. If you have concerns during this call, please contact the individual's facility to communicate with them. Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
All right, we got you back.
All right. Yeah, so that's that stood out to me very starkly, right? Is that, he's like groceries to Mamdani, right? And the people who think like him, groceries are too expensive. Therefore, we need to just subsidize groceries, right? Or give away groceries. Bus rides are apparently too expensive, whatever that means. So we need to just make it free, okay? And just the difference in what they said was significant. Again, Trump talked about cost, but then he talked about things like the price of fuel. He has at least, whatever you think about him, this is not, I don't have to endorse him out to carry water for him, but at least you're really thinking about not just, what Con Ed charges its ratepayers, but also the fact that, like every other producer of a good and service, or a service, Con Ed bears certain costs. There are operational costs. There are inputs. You have to buy fuel. You have to buy, if you're running generators, you have to buy energy from other places on the spot markets, for example. You have to pay maintenance staff. You have to replace machinery from routine wear and tear, and so on and so forth. And this is really the problem I have with the way Zohran Mamdani thinks. And I say how he thinks because I just infer how he thinks from the things he talks about and how he talks about things, right? It's not so much that that I have a reaction or I've had a reaction to this magic word socialism. Not just a word. We shouldn't be scared of a word. But the problem is that when Mamdani talks about the things that are happening in New York and talks about affordability and things like that, he talks like someone who does not understand the concept of inputs. He talks like someone who does not understand that, part of what you have to do is reduce the cost to producers of producing goods and services. And it's like if you don't get that, then you don't understand that. You understand almost nothing about economics or anything else. So yeah, that's my thought on that.
No, that's 100% true. And I know that maybe you haven't heard this, but here in the great state of Texas, we're down to about $2.30 a gallon on gasoline.
Wow.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Is there a little bit of Texas bragging there?
It's a Texas fatter wallet. Well, I hear these other folks like in California, they're still up, almost $4, maybe $5 a gallon. That's crazy.
Well, of course. I mean, the thing, right? It's like, don't get me started because
it's taxes, man. They put taxes on the gallon of gas and drive it up.
Well, exactly, because gas itself is a stateless commodity, right? And the price is more or less set on the global commodities market based on, the supply of crude and refining capacity and logistics and so on and so forth. But it's taxes that are piled on to various to consumers in various states, what have you, that impose these prices. And of course, the other problem is California is in the grip of neurotic lefties who are convinced that an overabundance of plant food in the atmosphere is going to kill us all, and so they're secretly they're delighted with the idea of making energy more expensive, which of course makes no sense, right? Yeah, let's scramble and get electric cars. Well, how are you going to charge your electric cars, dummy?
It doesn't matter. We'll feel better about it. Damn it. Don't you understand? It's how we feel. It's not going to work, but we feel better.
That's correct. It's going to make us feel better. It's not going to solve the problem. You make us feel better. That's correct.
All right. Let's get to our last little clip here with the White House visit, and then we'll get on to some Elise Stefanik.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I focused very little on resolutions, frankly. I've been focusing...
Condemn socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify that your answer to Stephen Nelson, he asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say
Okay.
yes. Okay. It's easier.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't catch the first question that she posed. I did the audio.
She asked him. There was a resolution passed in Congress that says America will never be socialist. I guess is pretty much the gist of it. So she asked him about that. He says, "Hey, I don't pay attention to resolutions. I've been busy, trying to get the city of New York." And then she pressed him again about. He was asked a question earlier about you being so comfortable next to a guy you called a fascist. And she asked him about that. He got a little uncomfortable there, kind of stumbled with it. But Trump saved him and said, "That's okay. You can call me a fascist. I've been called worse. Don't bother me."
Not a problem. I mean, that was so to the first part, right? I mean, I think credit where credit is due. I mean, that was a good answer Mamdani gave. I mean, he shouldn't be. I mean, first of all, that's a dumb resolution. Because it doesn't. How can I put this?
It doesn't mean anything. Is that what you're trying to say?
It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't mean a damn thing, right? What matters is what we actually do, right? As a nation, what we do in the states and the localities as well. That's what matters, right? So yeah, that was just silly. And this is part of my ongoing rant about people trying to use socialism as a scare word. I think there are plenty of good conservative reasons to dislike Zoran Mamdani's stated objectives, and not his objectives really, his stated policy preferences, right? But then there are plenty of good common sense reasons to hate his ideas. So calls himself whatever, but separate from all these dumb ideas. So I'm glad he at least is not trying to engage with some dumb resolution that Congress decided to pass or Senate decided to pass. Okay. And then as far as the use of he's a fascist or what have you, that was just that was pretty that was pretty funny. It's like here he is getting into a little bit of hot water of his own making and visibly uncomfortable from what my mother said from watching the clip. And Trump pulls him out of the fire. It's a minor moment, but minor moments can be very telling. And again, I would imagine that the kind of the far left element of his base, of Mamdani's base, were really in their feelings about that. Because wait a minute, you're supposed to say, "Damn right, he's a fascist." You're supposed to get up and rip your shirt and kind of and have a whole, the whole moment there. But he kind of don't worry about it. Okay, fine.
I think at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it, if you just look at political maneuver and tactics, Trump won the day on this. I think all the way across the board. Without a doubt.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right. And by the way, the other thing, the elephant that's not in the room, right, is this. mostly due to the fact that New York City went bankrupt in the, I believe, it was 1970s, and had to get bailed out. The New York City mayor does not, and the city council and the mayor don't really have full budgetary autonomy, right? Albany has to sign off on New York City's budget. And so a lot of the kind of wilder elements of Mamdani's policy package of politics will simply not, they're not going to pass muster in Albany. Why? Well, for the simple reason that Governor Kathy Hochul is running for re-election next year. And so she's not going to want to sign off a whole bunch of tax increases and rate increases and so on and so forth for New York City. It's very unlikely that she's going to do it. And in fact, she signaled, I believe, I think my mom played me a clip or something related to that. She signaled that, yeah, she's not going to, there are certain elements that she's not going to sign off on.
I think she said that on the buses and a few other things. But, you talk about the governor's election. We have, you still there?
Yeah, still here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah.
I think I lost you for a second. But we have Elise Stefanik, who's running. Here's a clip somewhere in, they call it downstate New York, a local channel 12, that she's doing an interview. Let's listen to this, because they're going to talk about Mamdani as well.
I want to dive right in and with the meeting that the whole world is still talking about, the Oval Office meeting between Zohran Mamdani and President Trump. You are one of the president's most loyal, staunchest supporters in Congress. Yet in that meeting, or after the meeting in the press conference, he explicitly disagreed with your characterization of Zohran Mamdani as a jihadist, called him rational, said he's looking forward to working with him. What is your response to the president disagreeing with you so publicly? And does it at all, do you feel it complicates your messaging of Zohran Mamdani posing a dangerous direction for New York?
No, I don't think it complicates my messaging, and we'll have to agree to disagree. I strongly believe that Zohran Mamdani is catastrophic for the people of New York City and really for the people of New York State, particularly when you consider the fact that New York City and the greater New York City region is home to more Jewish families than any other part of the world outside of Israel. And yet it is increasingly dangerous. We've seen a skyrocketing of anti-Semitism. And you have Zohran Mamdani, who is a defund the police, tax hiking socialist who has campaigned with unindicted co-conspirator of terrorist attacks, including the 1993 World Trade Center bombing that killed New Yorkers. So I stand by my statement. He is a jihadist. And this is an area where President Trump and I disagree. But what we all want to work towards is making New York more affordable and safe. And that's where I've had a very strong record and working relationship with the administration.
Did you hear any tones there that sounded familiar, Dexter? That's Elise Stefanik during an interview.
Yep. Yeah, so, I mean, look, as far as the whole jihadist sort at Mamdani, I think that's dumb, right? I mean, look, again, there are a lot of, plain common sense reasons to dislike his ideas. There are a lot of good conservative reasons to dislike his ideas. The idea that he's a jihadist because he got on his hind legs and said some dumb thing about global intifada. I mean, that's just silly. Again, he's dangerous. He's dangerous for New York because he has ideas that are, however those ideas are intended, those policy ideas are intended, that the practical effect will be to make life more difficult for New Yorkers. He's dangerous because he really doesn't have the ideas about policing. He has no ideas about the professional maintenance of civic order. He has not thought about these things, and yet he seems to have very strong opinions about this and that. And of course, we know that he's walked back some of his opinions, some of his statements, as he had to do. Defunding the police, he had to walk that back. But that, so it's not like we should be worried that he's going to like send all the police home and start some kind of street jihad in New York. That's dumb. Okay. The problem is that New York needs better policing, and he has not thought about what better policing actually means. Right. And so, yeah, that's why it's dangerous, not because he's a jihadist. I'm sorry. I mean, I really, really hope at least Stefanik becomes governor. Beats Kathy Hochul will become governor next year for obvious reasons. But yeah, that I don't really buy that. That's just silly.
I thought it was.
And by the way, I just want to point out one more thing is that slights like this also. I have something that I often say, which is do not give your adversary an excuse to change the subject, right? So, like Mamdani says, well, I'm a socialist and I believe this and this and we should do this and this and this. Okay, these ideas are stupid. Let's attack the ideas. We turn around and attack him for being a quote unquote jihadist, and now the adversary gets to change the subject. And you just want to be he's a Muslim. He's this and that. It's like, well, don't give him a chance to change the subject. Stay on the subject that, like, yeah, his ideas are transcendently stupid. That's the problem, right? So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that the danger of anti-Semitism. If we define anti-Semitism as merely a species of racism, then anti-Semitism, properly understood, is not dangerous at all. It's merely a sin. It's a sin of intellect. The same way any other kind of racism is a sin of intellect. Okay. Now, I believe that sin is obviously bad for your soul. It's bad for your soul to go around hating people because of what they are or how they exercise freedom of conscience, and their religious practices, so on and so forth, and ethnicity and what have you. But it's not dangerous. What is dangerous is breaking the things that cause there to be peace. Is breaking the mechanisms that we have, flawed as those mechanisms are, for maintaining civic order. What's dangerous is maintaining the left-wing war on the American family, which is still going on apace in New York and other places around the country. That's what's dangerous. Someone with dumb ideas about race and ethnicity, a lot of people with dumb ideas about race and ethnicity are not dangerous. Racists do not pose a danger to me. People raising up weapons against each other and against me, that's dangerous. So that's what I'll say to that.
I mean, maybe not such a deep philosophical pull off of that, but I thought, the reporters coming in wanting some dirt on Mamdani, she addresses it. She says what she says and says that me and the president will agree to disagree on that. But she said, we do agree on, she finishes that off with affordability. Same thing that Trump was talking about. Same thing Mamdani's been talking about for New York City and in New York State. So I thought she did a good job with that portion of that. She took the shitty one. She sparred with it for a minute, but she ended it on, I'm here to get the problem solved, so to speak.
Yeah, and look, that's what one would expect her to do. I mean, because again, that's where the strongest case against him is. In terms of what are you actually going to do to make life more affordable for New Yorkers? So yeah, but again, we could have done with all that. People's dumb opinions about other human beings are dangerous. That's
right, but this is the media, man. I mean, this.
Yeah, but no. I'm an amateur. I'll cop to being an amateur listener. Elise Stefanik is a professional speaker, and also she's supposed to be conservative. And it's the lefties who've been going around telling us that people's ideas are dangerous. And racism is this thing. It should be elevated to the status of a crime or something like that. That's a lefty thing. So that was disappointing for me to hear. But it is what it is. But like I said, all that the backdrop against all that is that I really hope she beats Kathy Hochul next year. because we need, again, these Democrats in Albany they're helping us to death. They're just killing us, So yeah.
Do you want to hear any more of that? No more on that.
Oh hell yeah! Let's keep on. Yeah.
And we obviously were not in that meeting to know the word for word what they discussed, but like you said, affordability, that was the common ground. It appeared to be between the two of them. So let me ask you directly, where is Zohran Mamdani's messaging dangerous as it relates to affordability, and how do your plans differ?
Well, he talks about abolishing private property. He talks about opening government-run grocery stores. When you talk to small businesses in New York City, it is the most expensive, not only state, but city in America to run a business, to create jobs. It's unaffordable for families. He also has blocked additional housing. Housing is incredibly important if we want to not just freeze rent, but lower rents and make it more affordable. And on the issue of energy, look, Democrats have a record in New York State. They control all the levers of government, and energy and utility prices continue to rise, and it's because of failed policies. So there are policy disagreements. Of course, both are focused on affordability. We have a vision to make New York more affordable.
Now she's right in the pocket. She's right in the pocket. The idea of government run. I mean, let's pull back a second. Like, this goes back to what I said earlier. The instrument he reaches for is state control, right? And by the way, it's very interesting. Again, he calls himself a socialist, and media has made much of the fact that Trump called him a communist, as if that's in its representation. But when you look at Mamdani's ideas, right? Again, he always gravitates toward the instrument of state control. Well, that is communist. It's like the state is controlling the means of production, right? And that's the problem. And of course, the other thing is that he has not thought about what it means to, how we arrive at the cost of goods and services in the first place. And the fact that, well, yes, you have to drive costs down for the producers, for the productive part of the economy. And what's funny is, government is not the productive part of the economy. Like, government is not productive. Government doesn't have any money. It's your money, right? So yeah, it's again, she's right in the pocket there. This is what's bad and dangerous about Zohran Mamdani. And by the way, if you want government-run grocery stores, I mean, you should come in here with me. We've got them in here.
Yeah, true that. Everything's government run.
Exactly. And see how that's like that. So yeah, that's I mean, I won't go too deep on his silly ideas, but yeah, I mean, she's right.
All right, let's see if maybe we can catch another part of this interview here.
Sure.
So let's talk about the political calculus here moving on, because the polls are all over the map, right? There's polls out there that show you within the margin of error. Then there's the latest one from Siena that shows you 20 points behind Governor Hochul. Not to mention the Democratic enrollment in this state is still massive, and the state hasn't elected a Republican governor in more than 20 years. So what I'm so curious about and want to ask you now is, you're so respected in the MAGA movement, in Republican circles in Washington. Why give up a secure leadership role in Washington to run statewide in a state that has frankly been really tough terrain for Republicans since Governor Pataki? Why do you think you can break the streak?
So I think New Yorkers are fed up. They are saying enough is enough. And if you look, no state has moved more towards the Republican direction over the past few cycles than New York State. Even at the presidential level, it moved more to the right than any other state in the country. You've seen the inroads that we've made, not only in my district, which was previously held by a Democrat, where we win a broad coalition of Republicans, independents, and Democrats because of my record of delivering results. But people see Kathy Hochul and she's failed. She's an accidental governor, and she's only in that position because Cuomo stepped down and she was his lieutenant governor. What has she overseen? A historic affordability crisis where literally families can cannot make ends meet. We are the worst state in the country when it comes to small businesses being able to grow and thrive. And we lead the nation in outmigration with a mass exodus of people in New York. Enough is enough. We need people to step up to save New York, and that's why I'm running. And I think about this as a young mom. I have a 4-year-old son, Sam. He was born in Saratoga County. He is a New Yorker. He goes to school in upstate New York. I want this state to be a place where families can grow and thrive and can afford to live, not being forced to barely survive, which is what's happening under Kathy Hochul.
So did you like
Amen.
that more than what was said before?
Well, I mean, I think it's of a piece with what was said right before. I mean, yes, she's in the pocket there. I mean, that is yes.
Actually, let me ask you this: as a New Yorker, is some of what she's saying is that hidden? Is it resonate with you as a New Yorker? Is what she's saying to be true, or something that is a positive direction for New York? Appealing, maybe.
Well, but when you talk about it, what specifically do you mean? Like that New York has moved to the right? That
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about her political digs on Mamdani. I'm not talking about her political digs on Holcomb. I'm saying the things that she is saying, like focusing on affordability. That she's a Republican that recognizes that's a problem. Focusing on the cost of doing business in New York. That she says that's a problem. The things the real stuff she's talking about, not the political crap.
Yeah, well, to me, that's political as well, and it should be, because these are at least in part, political issues. Because it is in large part the government that makes it so costly to start a business in New York City, right? And in New York State, it's the government that's imposing these very high costs on the producers of goods and services, the producers of the production of energy, right? Government is making it expensive, and so the affordability crisis has been largely, not entirely, but largely created by bad governance in New York City and New York State. So it is political, and good for her for pointing it out. Now, I am interested in hearing, what she has to bring to the table in terms of ideas, but in terms of zeroing in on what the issues are, those are the issues. Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, she's in the pocket on that one. Yep.
But I mean, that rings to you. That's what you want to hear out of candidates right now, as a New Yorker. These things, and not. I don't know. Give me an example. Transgender. Like, hey, I'm really important. It's really important that kids go to the bathroom they want to. That's which one would resonate, you think, more to the majority of New Yorkers? What she's saying, or something else?
Well, here's the thing. I think that they resonate at different frequencies. Let me put it that way. In other words, it is. I don't want. We shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking, well, the transgender thing is a distraction. It's not a distraction, because we don't want boys and girls bathrooms and changing rooms in schools. We don't want men in women's spaces, right? We don't want men being sent to women's prisons, right, and sexually assaulting female inmates, right, and like as is happening in various parts of the world where they try this stuff, including California, by the way. There's a woman named is it Amy Ishikawa? I heard a podcast that she did with Mike Rowe, where she talked about that. She was actually in the California prison system for a while, and she talks about that. So those are important too. But I think that this is a short conversation that she had a relatively short conversation with this journalist, and she's downright to focus on affordability. That's a key thing. The other stuff matters too. The cultural stuff matters too, and the kind of gender madness and that stuff, that matters too. But yes, I do want to hear proposals talk about accountability, but of course I won't give them so much credit for talking about the problem. Now I want to hear what the plan is for actually making things more affordable, actually, reducing the cost of producing goods and services. What are your plans for making it easier to bring new housing into the market in New York and maintain your housing and make it easier for people to turn their assets into prosperity, their skill sets into prosperity. I want to hear now specific plans for doing that. But certainly, again, she has her finger on the pulse of the issue. That's one of the things we're worried about.
Let me ask you this: what do you think do you think the populace notices the message
You have
change?
1 minute left.
I tell you what, Dexter, we're going to start a space. Once this call ends, give me 10 minutes and call me back, and we'll get you into the space. We're at an hour on our live stream.
Okay, you sure you don't want to just finish this line of?
I do as quick as I can. There's been a sea change in the message between the Democrats in 2024, prior to the election, to telling you that egg prices, that's not bad. It's not as bad as you think. Quit fucking crying. Now all of a sudden, affordability is the winning message.
Right.
Do you think the populace recognized that 9 months ago it wasn't a problem? Now all of a sudden it's the number one problem?
That's a good question. I don't know if the populace recognizes that the Democrats have kind of made it not an about face, but kind of changed their tune on this. But the important thing is that the Democrats really don't have any good ideas, as far as I can see, about how to tackle the problem. I'm going to drop and come back.
Thank you for using Securus. The caller has hung up. Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye.
All right, folks, we'll keep the stream open a few minutes longer. Wait for Dexter to call back.